The early 19th century saw the United States expand westward with an insatiable appetite for land. This period, often romanticized in American history, was marked by the relentless pursuit of new territories and opportunities. From the Atlantic coast, the young nation stretched its borders, pushing into territories occupied by Native American tribes for centuries. These lands, rich in natural resources and beauty, were home to diverse cultures and communities that had thrived long before European settlers arrived. This expansion, fueled by the dream of manifest destiny, set the stage for a tragic clash of cultures and a brutal chapter in American history. Manifest destiny was the belief that American settlers were destined to expand across the continent, a notion that justified the displacement of Native American tribes. Native American tribes, including the Cherokee, found themselves caught in the path of this relentless westward march. The Cherokee, along with other tribes, had established complex societies with their own systems of governance, languages, and traditions. Their lands, rich in resources and steeped in ancestral heritage, became the target of settlers and the federal government alike. The fertile soil was ideal for agriculture, and the discovery of valuable minerals only intensified the desire to claim these territories. Treaties were negotiated and broken. Promises were made and forgotten, and the very existence of Native American tribes was threatened as the United States grew. These treaties, often signed under duress or through deceit, were supposed to protect Native American lands but were frequently ignored. The Cherokee in particular faced immense pressure. Their leaders, such as John Ross, fought tirelessly to protect their people's rights and lands through legal means, even taking their case to the Supreme Court. Their ancestral lands, encompassing parts of present-day Georgia, North Carolina, Tennessee, and Alabama, were coveted for their fertile soil and potential for gold mining. The discovery of gold in these regions brought a surge of settlers eager to strike it rich. The discovery of gold in 1829 further fueled the desire for Cherokee land, leading to increased harassment and encroachment by white settlers. These settlers, driven by greed and the promise of wealth, often resorted to violence and intimidation to force Native Americans off their lands. This insatiable hunger for land and riches set the stage for the Indian Removal Act of 1830, a law that would have devastating consequences for the Cherokee and other Native American tribes. The act, signed by President Andrew Jackson, authorized the forced relocation of Native American tribes to lands west of the Mississippi River. The act marked a turning point in the relationship between the United States government and Native Americans, one that would forever be etched in sorrow and resilience. The forced relocations, known as the Trail of Tears, resulted in the deaths of thousands of Native Americans due to disease, starvation, and exposure. The demand for Native American land was not solely driven by economic factors. The expansionist mindset was also fueled by a deep-seated belief in the superiority of American culture and the perceived need to spread civilization. There was also a prevailing belief among many white Americans in their own racial and cultural superiority. This belief was often used to justify the displacement and mistreatment of Native American tribes, portraying them as obstacles to progress. This sense of superiority manifested in the desire to civilize Native Americans, often through forced assimilation. Government policies aimed at eradicating Native American cultures included the establishment of boarding schools, where Native American children were taught to abandon their heritage. Many believed that the only way for Native Americans to survive was to abandon their traditional ways of life and adopt European American customs and religion. Missionary schools played a significant role in this process, often forcibly removing children from their families to indoctrinate them. This paternalistic and ultimately destructive attitude permeated government policies and fueled the push for Indian removal. The belief that Native Americans needed to be saved from their own cultures led to policies that stripped them of their lands and identities. The stage was set for a tragic clash of cultures. The expansionist policies of the United States clashed violently with the deep-rooted traditions and ways of life of Native American tribes. On one side, a young and ambitious nation driven by expansion and a belief in its own manifest destiny, the promise of new land and opportunities drove settlers to push ever westward, often at the expense of those who already called these lands home. On the other, a people deeply rooted in their ancestral lands, facing the loss of their homes, their culture, and their very way of life. The resilience and resistance of Native American tribes in the face of such overwhelming odds is a testament to their strength and spirit. The conflict that ensued would leave an indelible mark on the American conscience, a stark reminder of the human cost of westward expansion. The Trail of Tears and other forced relocations are a somber chapter in American history, highlighting the devastating impact of expansionist policies on Native American communities. The Indian Removal Act of 1830 stands as a stark symbol of the United States government's policy towards Native Americans in the 19th century. This act was not just a piece of legislation, it was a harbinger of tears, a precursor to a series of events that would lead to immense suffering and loss for the Native American tribes. This act, signed into law by President Andrew Jackson, authorized the president to negotiate treaties with Native American tribes living east of the Mississippi River. Jackson, a staunch advocate of westward expansion, believed that the removal of Native Americans was essential for the growth and prosperity of the United States. The goal was to exchange their ancestral lands for lands west of the Mississippi, in what was then considered Indian Territory, now present-day Oklahoma. This exchange was presented as a fair trade, but in reality it was a forced relocation, stripping Native Americans of their homelands, which held deep cultural and spiritual significance. The act, while seemingly offering a peaceful exchange, was in reality a thinly veiled attempt to forcibly remove Native Americans from their homes. The government used coercion and deceit, making promises that were rarely kept, and often resorting to military force to achieve their aims. It paved the way for one of the darkest chapters in American history, a period marked by forced migration, unimaginable suffering, and the death of thousands of Native Americans. The journey, known as the Trail of Tears, saw entire communities uprooted, facing harsh conditions, disease, and starvation. The act was met with fierce resistance from many Native American tribes who rightfully saw it as an existential threat. They knew that their lands were not just places to live, but were integral to their identity, culture, and way of life. They understood that their way of life, their cultures, and their very survival were at stake. The loss of their lands meant the loss of their history, their traditions, and their future. The Cherokee Nation, in particular, fought back against the Indian Removal Act with a tenacity that challenged the very foundations of the United States government. They took their fight to the courts, arguing that they had a right to their lands based on previous treaties and their sovereign status. They refused to be driven from their homes without a fight, embarking on a path of legal and political resistance that would have far-reaching consequences. Their struggle was not just for their own survival, but for the recognition of their rights and their dignity as a people. Their struggle would become a testament to the strength and resilience of a people determined to protect their heritage and their right to exist. Despite the overwhelming odds, they held on to their identity and their sense of community. The signing of the Indian Removal Act marked a turning point in the relationship between the United States and Native Americans, one that would be defined by broken promises, forced assimilation, and the tragic legacy of the Trail of Tears. The act was a clear indication of the lengths to which the government would go to achieve its goals, regardless of the human cost. The act set in motion a chain of events that would forever alter the course of American history, leaving a stain on the nation's conscience. The legacy of the Indian Removal Act is a somber reminder of the injustices faced by Native Americans and the enduring impact of those policies on their communities today. It is a chapter that continues to resonate, reminding us of the importance of acknowledging and learning from the past. In the face of relentless pressure from the United States government, the Cherokee Nation demonstrated remarkable resilience and adaptability. They had long occupied their ancestral lands in the southeast, developing a rich and complex society that was deeply intertwined with the natural world around them. Their culture, rooted in tradition and a deep connection to the land, had flourished for centuries. The Cherokee people had established a way of life that was both sustainable and harmonious, with a social structure that emphasized community, family, and respect for nature. Their cultural traditions, passed down through generations, were a testament to their enduring connection to their homeland. This connection was not just physical, but spiritual, as the land was seen as a living entity that provided for and protected the Cherokee people. Recognizing the growing threat to their sovereignty, the Cherokee embarked on a path of adaptation in the early 19th century. They understood that in order to survive and protect their way of life, they needed to find ways to coexist with the encroaching European American settlers. They embraced aspects of European American culture, including literacy, agriculture, and governance. By adopting these new practices, the Cherokee sought to demonstrate their ability to integrate and thrive within the changing landscape of the United States. They developed a written language, established schools and churches, and adopted a constitution modeled after that of the United States. This constitution was a bold statement of their intent to govern themselves and maintain their autonomy. This process of acculturation, however, was not a sign of submission. It was a strategic move to demonstrate their sophistication and their capacity for self-governance in the hopes of securing their land rights. The Cherokee leaders believed that by showing their ability to adapt and govern, they could negotiate a peaceful coexistence with the United States. Despite their efforts to assimilate and coexist peacefully, the Cherokee Nation faced increasing pressure to relinquish their land. The United States government and settlers were relentless in their pursuit of expansion, often disregarding treaties and agreements made with the Cherokee. The discovery of gold within their territory in 1829 exacerbated tensions with white settlers, who encroached upon their land illegally, demanding access to the newly discovered riches. This gold rush brought a surge of settlers into Cherokee territory, further straining the already tenuous relationship between the Cherokee and the United States. The state of Georgia, eager to seize control of Cherokee land, passed laws that stripped the Cherokee of their remaining rights and sovereignty. These laws were designed to undermine the Cherokee's legal standing and force them off their land, making way for white settlers to take over. The Cherokee Nation refused to accept this injustice. They stood firm in their resolve to protect their land and their people, using every available means to resist the encroachment and defend their rights. They challenged the state of Georgia's actions in the Supreme Court, setting the stage for a landmark legal battle that would test the very fabric of the United States government. This legal struggle was not just about land, it was about the recognition of the Cherokee Nation's sovereignty and their right to exist as a distinct people. The Cherokees' fight for justice and their right to self-determination would become a testament to their unwavering spirit in the face of adversity. Their story is one of courage, resilience, and the enduring strength of a people determined to preserve their heritage and way of life against overwhelming odds.